Hey y'all, let me tell you about Gobble. All Gobble meal kits are pre-prepped. That means less work for you and less waste in your kitchen. Their meal kits include everything you need so you can save time at the store or just skip that trip entirely. I got the box in and I had 3 different meals. I had a Kung Pao chicken, crispy fish tacos, and a beef bourguignon, however you say it. But let me tell you about the classic beef bourguignon. Look, it came with beef pot roast and a beef broth concentrate, red wine demi-glace, cremini mushrooms, cipollone onions, mashed potatoes, baby carrots, and rosemary thyme butter. It was so easy to make. Literally like 15 minutes it took Cindy. And let me tell you something, and all the dishes were fire, but this thing was like a taste explosion in my mouth. It's just unreal. We got to spend more time together and more time doing the things we love because everything came in this one single box right to my door. So see what a difference Gobble will make for your household. Right now, they're offering my listeners a fantastic limited time deal. You get $120 off across 4 boxes plus free shipping and free cookies. And let me tell you, those cookies, I ate one that was sin-baked and it was delicious. Go to gobble.com/reallife. That's GOBBLE.com/real life for $120 off your first 4 boxes. This offer is not available on the home site, so don't miss out. This is genius. It's taste explosions in your mouth like you never had. Hey ladies, are you feeling overwhelmed by hormonal changes? Well, you're definitely not alone. There are more than 1,000 hormone disruptors living in our environment right now. It's in your food, your water, the air you breathe, the clothes you wear, your skincare products. They all mess with your hormones. Then there's the natural hormone changes your body goes through, premenopause, menopause. And while it's a natural process, it doesn't mean you have to suffer through it. The good news is you don't have to suffer through it anymore because now you have Hormone Harmony, a formula made only with herbal ingredients that are shown to reduce hormonal symptoms in women of all ages. Hormone Harmony is not just a hormone support and supplement, it's become a phenomenon. Women can't stop talking about it on social media. A bottle of Hormone Harmony is sold every 24 seconds. And the biggest benefit? Well, my wife says it makes her feel like her own self again. And that's what women mention over and over in the reviews. And there are over 30,000 reviews for Hormone Harmony. And for a limited time, you can get 15% off your entire first order at happymammoth.com. Just use code RLRC at checkout. That's happymammoth.com and use code RLRC for 15% off today. That's happymammoth.com and use code RLRC.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to and during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
When the wolf is at your door, your running's over, that's for sure. He already knows all about you. Cut you down, no matter by you. Now you better walk the line. Real life, real
Warning, this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast, may contain descriptions of acts of violence or that of a sexual nature and should be for people that are 18 years or older. Heed my warning, people. I do not get the facts of these cases off of the internet or for some television show. The facts I'm retelling you were presented to me by the victims of the crimes or the perpetrators who committed the crimes against the victims. My descriptions of the crime scenes, what I saw with my own 2 eyes. If you're going to get offended, please turn this podcast off now. Thank you. Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of Real Life, Real Crime, the podcast. As always, I'm your host, Woody Overton. In today's story, y'all, it's a tragic, horrible thing, but it's definitely a real life, real crime. And I'm going to call this one, Why Not Divorce? So go back to many years ago. I think it was like 2005 or 2006. And my mama always says there's 2 things you never have to go far to find in South Louisiana, and that's a bar room or a church. And today we're going to be talking about a church. Like most of the churches, y'all, are really small. The one I used to go to in Hammond, and I was the only Caucasian male in the church. If there were 10 or 15 people in the church on Sunday, that was a lot, right? And that was Pastor Shirley Vicks, who ran that Church of God of Prophecy. Well, in Baton Rouge, there's a church called the Ministry of Jesus Christ, and it was located at 1935 Dallas Drive in Baton Rouge. And as usual, that they were holding 9:00 services, right? But total in the whole church were 6 adults and 5 children. All right. So the pastor, his name was Miss Brown, said that she saw a guy named Anthony Bell arrive at the church around 9:15 a.m. So a couple minutes late. And he walks in, y'all, and look, this is a little small church. Like probably 8 pews or something like that. And you've got 6 adults. So you got 11 people between the adults and the children in the church total. Bell walks in and he holds up the church and he asks Pastor Brown, he says, hey, can I have the floor? I'd like to address the church. And preacher was like, okay. Preacher Brown was kind of like, okay, this is kind of unusual. And she's female, y'all. But she said, okay, I will grant your request. And so Anthony Bell then says to everybody that's in attendance, he says that he wanted Erica back. And she was there, y'all. And Erica was his wife. And she was there with, I think, 3 of their kids. But he says, look, Erica, I want you back. And will you please get back together with me? And what happened? Erica said no, right? Now, when you go to these small churches, y'all, you're going to know everyone. Pretty much they're all going to be family members and what have you. But Erica just says no. And then Anthony Bell got mad, right? And he left the church. But, and the Pastor Brown was like, okay, that was kind of unusual, but she could see him outside the window of the church, and he's walking up and down, back and forth on the sidewalk. And so Pastor Brown calls her father up, and his name was Leonard Howard, y'all, and said, hey, can you go outside and check on Anthony and, make sure he's okay? So Leonard Howard went outside, and he talked to Anthony. He was like, hey, man, what's going on? And are you okay? And Anthony says, yeah, I'm all right. And so Howard comes back into church, and he goes up to Pastor Brown. And he says, hey, he says he's good, right? So church goes on, and the service goes on. As the service was ending and they were closing everything up and people were leaving, Pastor Brown heard a commotion in the outer room of the church, and she heard her mama, Gloria Howard, say, "Don't shoot me, Anthony." And the Pastor Brown took off towards the door, right, to see what was happening. And
Before she could get to the door, y'all, she heard pow, 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 gunshots, right? And the next thing she could remember herself is that she was on the floor laying on top of a baby's car seat. Now, Pastor Brown had been shot in the back of the head, and moments later, she heard her daughter, Erica, who is Anthony Bell's wife, that said she didn't want to get back with him. And she heard her say, "Anthony, can I kiss my mama goodbye?" And Pastor Brown heard Bell say, "Yes, you can." So Erica leans down and kisses her mom on the cheek. And Pastor Brown looked up and saw a gun hanging down from Anthony Bell's hand, right? So then they leave the church, and Anthony Bell and Erica were leaving the church, and Brown heard Bell say, "Come on, Erica, let's go. I told you I was going to do it." So tragedy, right? But y'all, 5 of the 6 adults present at the church had been shot, and all of them were shot in the head. And Erica, Anthony Bell's wife, and her 3 children were taken from the church in a rented beige Nissan Maxim car by Anthony Bell. Now, Pastor Brown, y'all, as she's laying on the floor, she's still alive, but she's been shot in the head, so she's bleeding profusely. She's down, and from where she was at, she could see at least one of the other churchgoers down on the floor also, and she called out to him and got no response. And she called out to one of the 2 kids that were left in the church and said, "Hey, give my cell phone, give my cell phone." And so one of the kids brought a cell phone to her, but guess what? It wouldn't work, right? So, then she's like, "I need a cell phone." And they brought her another cell phone that one of the kids got off one of the victims who was down on the floor, and Pastor Brown calls 911, right? And she says, 911, what's your emergency? And she said, "Look, Anthony Bell shot up the church, and I need an ambulance like now." And she said, "I can see my family members on the ground, but none of them are moving." And so the operator says, "Look, Pastor Brown, call out to see if anyone will answer you." So she did. She was like, "Hey, is anyone here? Anyone alive? And can anyone hear me? Can anyone hear me?" And y'all, there was no response. Okay. And Pastor Brown and the 2 children were the only people left alive in the church. So Pastor Brown tells the 911 operator, she said, "Look, I'm covered in blood, and I don't know if I'm shot or not, or where I'm shot." And she said, "But I feel like I'm going to faint." And the call ends when Pastor Brown hears noises and thought that Anthony Bell was coming back into the church. And, I don't know, y'all, what happens in a situation like this. I remember when this happened clearly. So what happens is the police are now dispatched, and they arrive, and they found all the dead people in the church. And Pastor Brown was still conscious, believe it or not, being shot in the head. And she told him straight up, she said, "Anthony Bell shot me," right? So what do? They put her in an ambulance and take her to Our Lady Lake Medical Center in Baton Rouge. And she was still cognizant enough to be, when the detectives got there, and she gave a statement to police, but she had to have surgery and, be rushed into surgery and for the seriousness of her injuries, right? So, but she told the police at the hospital before surgery, she said that they said she was slow to communicate due to the medical treatment that she was getting. But she told the police, she said, Anthony Bell came into the church and asked the church to pray with him. And
she said she asked her father to go speak to him outside. And when Anthony was pacing up and down the sidewalk, and then she could see this from the pupil, right? And she stated that Bell then came back in the church and began shooting everyone. And she said, look, he was wearing a red and white and blue pullover shirt and denim shorts. And after the shooting, he took Erica and the 3 children from the church. All right. So, Pastor Brown was able to tell them at some point that Erica, who was their daughter, and remember that, and Anthony Bell were married in November of 2000 at a ceremony which she was the ordained minister for. She performed the ceremony. But she said that they've always had a pretty shitty relationship, on again, off again, and that they had recently separated, and that on the day before the shootings, on Saturday, May the 20th, 2006, that's when it was, y'all, 2006, Erica, her daughter, and Bell had an argument in Pastor Brown's driveway, and where she had to call the police out. And so the police get there and they're arguing, and they get both sides of the story. They separate them and do what they do. And one of the cops is like, hey, you know what? You need to get a restraining order on Monday, right? Go in, give them the file number, go into the DA's office. They'll get you hooked up with a restraining order. Well, y'all would have been a TRO, or temporary restraining order, and he had to get served with it. And then he has how many days till he has to appear before the judge and prove why the temporary restraining order shouldn't become permanent. Y'all, the problem with that is this was a Saturday. And even if she'd gotten the paper, I would submit to you that that paper doesn't stop bullets, right? And so anyway, they told her to get it. And unfortunately, this is one of those cases where the husband got it on his mind. If I can't have him, no one can have him, right? So y'all, it goes on and on and on, but let me go to the next part of the story and how he gets arrested. All right. But and I'll tell you everything else that happened. The cops are out, they're doing their thing. The crime lab's out, they're testing for gunshot residue and all this stuff. And they collect evidence. As the police arrived at the scene of the church, they made sure the scene was clear, right? You're going to do that first, make sure the shooter's still not there. And they called the ambulance. And unfortunately, when they went in, they found the 5 victims, all of gunshot wounds to the head, but the 2 children who were still alive on the scene. So the police get the children out, and that's when Pastor Brown tells them that Anthony Bell had done the shootings and taken her daughter, Erica, against her will. Well, what do? You put out a BOLO, or be on the lookout for, immediately to all responding units and everybody that's on duty about that beige Nissan Maxima, right? And that this dude's armed and dangerous. He just shot at least 5 people that we know of, and supposedly he's kidnapped his wife and kids. Miss Dolores Selvage is another one of the ones who's actually still alive when on the scene, but when they took her to the hospital, she ended up dying. The cops found 6 spent bullet casings that had contained bullets fired from a revolver, which were collected on the floor of the church. And let me tell you about that. That, y'all, in itself tells me as a cop that dude reloaded, right? Because the revolver, it doesn't, every time you shoot it doesn't throw out the empty spent casing like semi-automatics do. So he shot them all up and then dumps out. You have to roll the cylinder out, dump it, push your hand on the button and push out those 6 rounds, and then you got to load it with 6 more. So they they're on the lookout, right? And one of the officers finds the Nissan parked at 650 North Ardenwood, and so they call everybody. So like, dude's here, right? And as police arrived at the apartment complex at 650 North Ardenwood, they see Anthony Bell, and he's sitting outside, y'all, and he's shirtless, and he's holding one of his infant kids, right? Now, you're going to ask, where's Erica? Well, they approached the car, and they found Erica Bell in the passenger seat of the Nissan Maxima. And guess what? She's got a gunshot wound to the head. Okay? But there was a revolver that was in her, she was holding the revolver in her hand, and her hand was resting on her lap, okay? The revolver had one live round in it and was later determined to be the same weapon that was used in the church shooting. And a live round was also found in Anthony Bell's pocket when they're shaking him down, right? Along with a lighter and a driver's license. They were very suspect of the position of Erica's body and in the manner in which she was holding a revolver. And let me tell you how that works, y'all. If you shoot yourself 9 times out of 10 or 99.9% of the time, the firearm is not going to be in your hand, period. You're going to drop it. Your hands are going to relax. It's certainly not going to be sitting in your lap. It's still held in your hand. So they were suspect of that, right? But they found Bell's shirt. Remember that the pastor said, the white and blue striped shirt, in the parking lot of the apartments. But later on, they test Bell for gunshot residue, and they test Erica, his wife, for gunshot residue, and both of them tested positive. And the state's expert, when he was asked later on, it said, if Erica shot herself in the vehicle, anyone else who was in the vehicle should also test positive for gunshot residue. And he had to admit that, yes, they probably would. So, and also, y'all, DNA from both Anthony Bell and Erica were found in the revolver. Well, that's common sense, right? If he shoots her in the head and it puts her hand on the revolver, it's going to have DNA, right? So the DNA on the revolver, there was a shit ton from Anthony Bell and only a little bit from Erica. And they lifted fingerprints from the revolver, and they couldn't be compared, y'all. And also they tried to lift fingerprints from the spent casings in the church, and they couldn't be matched up one way or another. So what do? They start to question him. They Mirandize him and start to question him, right? And he says, Anthony Bell says, you know what? I'm not the shooter. Erica's the one that killed everybody in the church. And then Erica killed herself here at the apartment. And she told me, she said, look away. And he said, I know she shot him. I saw her shoot everybody in church. Well, the problem with that is, asshole, you didn't realize you left some people alive, right? And but he said, we came back to the apartment now, which was supposedly Erica had a boyfriend that lived there. And now while they went there, I would submit to you that Bell wanted to kill him also. But regardless, Bell's story is he did go to the church. He did want to get his wife back, and she got the firearm and killed everybody in church, including her mama. And then she drove to her boyfriend's apartment, and she told him to look to his left. He was in the driver's seat. And then she took out a pistol, he heard a loud bang, and she had shot herself. And that's why he was, holding the baby, and he knew that she was dead in the car, right? So, he told all this to Detective Robert Gann, and this was after he was Mirandized. Gann he said, hey, why did you shoot all those people? And he initially replied, that he was sorry and that he loved his baby. And he said he and his wife had been arguing since around 2:00 that morning, and she had asked him to go to church for her. And once they were at the church, Erica just pulls out a gun and began shooting. And Anthony Bell said he tried to get the gun from her, right? Now he's a fucking hero. And after the fight for the pistol, going back and forth, he said she reloaded the pistol and continued to shoot everyone in the church, right? And Bell said that his wife intended on killing her boyfriend Chucky, y'all, who lived at that North Ardenwood apartment complex. So what happens? They put him under arrest, and they take him back to the headquarters, and they start to interview him. Detective Gann does, and so he tells the story again. And Bell says, "Hey, look, Erica called me this morning and it told me to meet her at the Jack in the Box restaurant, and then they could go to church together." And he said, "But I got there and we were just arguing the whole time. We argued all the way to church." He said, "We got in church and she was still arguing in front of everybody in the church." And then she said that that Bell started to confess to things that he had done 2 or 3 years in the past that Erica didn't even know about. And Bell said Erica then left the church and came back with a gun and started shooting. And he covered his children as Henry's hero, right? He said, now you remember before, he said about trying to get the firearm from her. He said that he then tried to get the pistol away from Erica by grabbing the barrel with his left hand. I mean, I'm going to try to explain away DNA. And so Gann's like, okay, had the gun been reloaded? And Bell said that he had never said that. And the officer was like, "You're full of fucking shit. You did say that." And Erica apparently at gunpoint, right? Then forced Anthony Bell and the children back into that beige Maxima. And Bell said that after dropping off their two older boys at Erica's mom's house, which is the pastor that he shot in the head, she then took him to the apartment complex where her boyfriend Chuck lived. And Bell was like, "I don't know what she was going to do." And he said Erica was questioning him about his mistress while in the car outside the apartment complex. And he told her the truth. Then she told him to look out the window. And while he was looking away, she shot herself in the head with a revolver in her right hand. Now, the officers and Bell began to argue about the truth of his story. They were like, "You're full of shit, dude." And he was like, "No, I'm telling you, this is what happened." And they were like, "You know what? Let's put this down on paperwork, right? Let's put this down on a form. You put down your story." And at some point, Bell was like, "Fuck that. I'm not doing it. I'm going to wait till my mama gets me a lawyer." So, well, what do? The cops start to dig into Bell's life and try to establish a pattern and everything else. And they find one of his ex-girlfriends. And she says, "Hey, look, he's a bad motherfucker." And I had to call the cops on him several times throughout our relationship. And she said, "Look, one night he broke into my apartment and he tore up all my clothes. And she said he stalked me and he assaulted me." And I'm going to leave her name out, y'all. But she also described an incident in which Anthony Bell locked her in a closet and told her, "If I can't have you, no one's going to have you," right? Same kind of pattern. So let's just fast forward to the trial, y'all. Now he gets indicted for all these counts of first-degree murder and on everybody in the church, like numerous counts. And it's definitely going to be a death penalty case. So what happens is most lawyers can't even try a death penalty case, most public defenders, but there are some who are certified to do that. And Bell gets appointed 2 lawyers by the court. And it doesn't take long. And he's like, fuck that. I want to represent myself, right? Genius that he is. But there's a lot of back and forth. And the judge is like, hey, this is a death penalty case. And he's like, I understand that. I don't want these lawyers, blah, 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 blah. And ultimately, they had to, what they always do, get him tested to prove that he was capable of defending himself, or he not cray-cray, right? And he ends up passing. And the judge is like, you understand, I'm going to have them here to assist you, and you got to follow the rules of procedure and blah, 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 blah. But look, y'all imagine this. Pastor Brown gets on the stand, and he gets to question her. And they said he just tore into her and just went on and on and on, even to the point where he told her, he said, have you and I ever had sex? And she's like, no. He was like, oh, yeah, we have. You're lying. And this went back and forth. He just demanding that they had a sexual relationship. Now, your daughter's dead. Your mom and dad are dead. All your church members are dead, and this asshole that did it and is lying about it is now trying to make you out to be a slut, and you're the preacher, right? So that was one of several things, y'all. Like the girlfriend I told you about, previous girlfriend, he got to cross-examine her, and then after she said all the shit about locking in the closet and he can't have me, nobody's going to have me, and all that shit. He gets fucking cross-examine her, and he's like, he tried to make her look like she was crazy and an unreliable witness, right? And he was like, don't you have a habit of making false accusations against me and your other boyfriends? And he pointed out that she had called the cops on a number of her former boyfriends. Okay. Doesn't mean it didn't happen, right? But so he went on and tried to do what he do. But look, he questioned the states. He questioned the detectives. He questioned the forensic examiners and all this stuff. And ultimately, it would just go on, y'all, and they found his ass guilty of all these counts of first-degree murder, and he gets sentenced to death, right? Ship his ass to bloody Angola. He's gone. But he's not. As usual, and everybody knows this, and we haven't killed anyone since Gerald Bordelon. I think it was 2010 through 2012, and that he's from the Livingston Parish. In case, and I knew him, I knew him well. We'll leave it at that. We go listen to the episode Murder Me Now. But they have all these appeals. All they're going to do now is appeal and appeal and appeal and appeal. And look, he appealed on everything. First of all, he tried to say he was mentally handicapped because he had an IQ less than 50 or something like that. And the court's like, go fuck yourself, right? You show that you were coherent, and we had you tested and everything else. And you were fit to, you were insistent upon being your own lawyer. And now y'all, in one of this appeals process, he wants to hire one of his lawyers back and stuff. It's just, I don't know if he was playing the game or just he needs some help or what it may be, but he did it. And that was this is one of like 30 something things he alleges the trial court messed up on. The first one being that he wasn't mentally capable of defending himself. Well, bullshit, right? And then he says he believed his lawyers were holding certain documents from him. He challenged on that, and they had hearings on it and dismissed it. And he said that the district court didn't give him enough money for investigators and stuff like that until it was too late, and that got denied. And he says that the district court didn't apprise him of his rights and how much trouble he was basically going to be in for trying to represent himself in a death penalty case. It's bullshit. The judge asked him numerous questions. I mean, I didn't go into it. I mean, I could read them to you, but he says that also. He said that he had a mitigation expert, meaning that he had mitigating circumstances why he was the way he was, but who quit working his case when he waived his right to counsel. And after funds were finally approved for a psychiatric expert, that the expert did not conduct an evaluation in time for his penalty phase. And y'all heard me talk about the penalty phase in the past. You have the guilt phase, which they found him guilty, in the penalty phase, which they were like, he's like, oh, well, you can't put me to death because this, and this. And, I had a messed up childhood or whatever. Well, guess what? Guilty in the guilt phase also. So, but he says, even though I had two lawyers who were on standby, they weren't able to help me or effectively help me, in that the court allowed the prosecution to take advantage of his lack of legal education and his limited intellectual functioning. And he claims that the lawyers who were on standby were required to sit in the back of the courtroom, and their efforts to assist him were therefore curtailed, right? Bullshit, right? I mean, it just goes on and on and on. But he also said that the court messed up or erred in not allowing him, Anthony Bell, to revoke his waiver of counsel and have attorney Gregory Rome, who the other one y'all was Margaret Legat Tuda, and reappointed to represent him when he requested it, when he struggled with the cross-examination of one of the witnesses. But again, all bullshit. The court just hammers him, right? Boom, 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 boom. Well, you know what? He appeals it, and it just, so many of them just goes on and on. But at the end of the day, let me see if there's anything else I want to tell you about. All this is just legalese. It'll bore you to death, but it's typical, denied effective assistance of counsel and all this and whatever, not mentally responsible and blah, blah, blah. Well, you know what? You walked into a house of God, asked to have the floor, asked the church to pray with you, and then you asked for your wife to come back. She said no. You went outside. Your, what would it be, great father-in-law? I don't know, but the pastor's dad would be to him, but it was Erica's, I guess, grandfather. And he goes out and checks on you. Dude, you could have left at any point in time. What do? You wait till the church service is over, and when they come, that people are leaving the main, whatever you want to call it, hall, and they're going through the little foyer, you start killing them. And they just went to go to church that day, and you killed them. But you even shot your mother-in-law, left her for dead. Shot her in the head, left her for dead. And end of the day, comes back to bite you in the ass. So be it. On death row. Now, the problem for this guy, he's just a straight up cold-blooded killer. I don't know how fast you want to go to hell, but it's coming in a handbasket. You killing all these people in a church. I'm pretty sure there's an express lane for that. Now, the problem is 2006, that's 16, that's 14, that's 17 years you've been sitting on death row, Anthony Bell. And guess what? John Bell Edwards, our governor, not letting anybody be executed since, 2012, Gerald Borderline. That shit's over with. New sheriff's in town. Jeff Landry is now the governor-elect. And to you and the rest of the assholes on death row, your time's coming. Jeff Landry's not going to hold back. You're about to get your issue. And it's kind of fortuitous that you had all these extra years, these 17 years, for your appeals process to be exhausted. So when they start, and it's not gruesome gore anymore, it's still lethal injection. When they start, I expect there won't be too many delays. And I'll end it. Oh, you know what, Anthony Bell, you still got a divorce. And we'll see what happens. And I'm in that, in this episode, why not get a divorce? Y'all, I'm sorry this is going to be a little bit late. It's the end of the holiday weekend and everything else. We have a lot of exciting things coming up, so just stay tuned. Love and appreciate each and every one of y'all. And don't forget about Real Life Real Crime Daily, Bloody Angola. Of course, these original episodes, you'll have another one next week. I do have some guests coming on and stuff like that in the future. LOPA, Louisiana Organ Procurement Agency. You know, it's my jam, people. They save lives every day. Not only do they save lives by helping facilitate the organ transplant, they take care of these families, and I can't tell you the message that I get that people have lost their loved ones and go through the process now, and they've heard of LOPA because of Real Life Real Crime. It means the world. People are dying, waiting every day on these organ transplants. And so just go sign up to be an organ donor. Go to lopa.org. And look, you don't have to be a lifer from Louisiana. You can be from Kansas City, and you want to become an organ donor, go to lopa.org, take 2 minutes, fill out the questionnaire, give the gift of life and sight and all that other good stuff that they do, and be a hero, right? And I'm Woody Overton, your host of Real Life Real Crime, the podcast. And until next time or ever, don't let me catch you down on Murder by You. Peace.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have a right to an attorney prior to or during any question. If you can't afford one, the court will appoint one for you. Do you understand your rights?
Is at your door. Your running's over, that's for sure. He already knows all about you. Cut you down, no matter by you. Now you better walk the
Lowe's knows you want to get even more value for the holiday. That's why as a MyLowe's Rewards member, you get new member deals on holiday decor, tools, and more. And you earn points when you shop. More points equal more rewards to help you save on holiday and more. Not a member? Join for free today at Lowe's.com/MyLowe's Rewards. Because Lowe's knows deals. Program subject to terms and conditions. Points are awarded on eligible purchases. See Lowe's.com/terms for full details. Subject to change.